fellas. I've been waiting here for a while to record the pod. What's going on?
I'm in Seattle at the Emerald City Comic Con.
Oh, that's super cool. What are you doing there?
I don't know. I didn't tell you what I was going to be doing at the Emerald City Comic Con, so you can only guess. If I would have told you, then you would have written it into the script, and I would have said it right now.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. Listen, have you heard from Jeff lately?
Sure, hang on. I'll grab him.
Hey, fellow bots.
I'm actually not a bot. I'm a real live person. Where the heck are you, Jeff?
I don't know. I told you I was going to the Emerald City Comic Con, but I didn't tell you when or what I was planning to do. If I had told you that, you would have written that into the script and I would have said it right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's roughly what Django just said.
Yeah, I know, because you wrote it into the script.
Okay, yeah, truth. Listen, fellas, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to record an episode this week, so I was thinking I recorded a summary of Comics Pro and an outline of what we talked about at Comet earlier today. Do you want to just run that in place of a regular episode?
Or you could always clone, Katie and Jess and just do an interview with them about Comet instead.
Dude, that is not cool. I don't just go around cloning people's voices without their consent. I asked you guys for permission before I did this.
He's got a point, Jeff. It would be highly unethical for him to just make other people's voices say whatever he wanted them to say.
Yeah, that's right, buddy. Gosh, that Brian really is a good guy. Why, I've heard that the Sportos, the Motorheads, Geeks, Sluts, Bloods, Wastoids, Dweebies, Dickheads, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
Now you're just quoting Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Jeff.
Oh, yeah. I do that when my script gets caught up in the Internet Movie Database.
So I guess we'll just go ahead and use my podcast then?
That sounds
good.
Oh, sorry, Jeff. You go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying that sounds good to me.
Okay, boys, let's get this show started.
Coming to you from top secret field offices worldwide, these brave men and women fight a battle for truth, justice, and good clean data. These agents of change make up the Bureau of Records, Objects, and Standards. They are the Data B.R.O.S.
Hey folks, Brian here. Obviously, Django and Jeff couldn't join me this week, even though their incredibly lifelike voices were just heard before the intro. I am going to run the show solo this week. So we decided that we would run a podcast that I did earlier this week for Managed Comics, which is a Comics Pro recap and a little kickoff for the COMET Standard. So without any further ado, let's get started. Let's jump right into our Comics Pro recap. So Comics Pro was last week, February 22nd to 24th. Second year in a row in Pittsburgh. I shouldn't say where it is next year, but rumor has it it's going to be somewhere warmer. Though Pittsburgh was lovely. It was really, really nice. It was like 12 Celsius, which I don't even know what that is in American, but it was it was a lovely time. Yeah, we met a ton of amazing retailers. We launched the COMET Standard. It was really, really great. Day zero, we had a chance to get in, so that was on the Wednesday. There's an informal brewery tour that's hosted by Todd from New Dimension Comics. It was really, really great. We got to hit like 6 or 7 breweries, and there's comic shops along the way that you can kind of duck into. So there may or may not have been a couple comic shop duckings. And then there's an opening night reception, which is just a great chance to get to hang out with everyone. On day one, there were a ton of presentations from Diamond Distillery, First Second, Boom, Rocket Ship Entertainment, Magma, Comic Hub, PRH Distribution, Marvel, Games and Comics for Ukraine, CB4 Kids, Lunar Distribution, DC Comics, Ghost Machine, and The Experience. Just a ton of really great presentations. Plus there was a vendor hall. So we had, I think, a total of 3 or 4 hours in a vendor hall where we were able to set up. Like you can see my little Managed Comics set up there, and we were able to demonstrate Managed Comics to a bunch of folks real quick. But there was some really cool news that came out of day one. Philip from Boom said that Boom the industry needs new IPs and new franchises. It can't run off of exclusively Batman and Superman. And he said that Boom is at the forefront of that with stuff like Berserker and Something is Killing the Children. He introduced Man's Best, which I know I had like heard of before, but I don't know why, but it hadn't really grokked for me. And I got to see the Ashcan at ComicsPRO, and it's amazing. Like, I think this is going to be one of the hits of the year. It has kind of, it's reminiscent of We 3 without being hyper violent like that. And it looks really, really cool. I think it'll do really well. Armory Wars from Coheed and Cambria's guitarist, who also did like a little concert on, I think it was Thursday night. And they've got a bunch of new stuff that looks really good. Boom's always killing it. They're always doing really well. So it was great to see them, showing some of their up and coming stuff. Marvel had a big presence at the show, and they talked a lot about Blood Hunt, and they've got this red band version. They were showing off kind of what the gore looks like underneath the red band. It's not for me, but I get that there's folks out there that are interested in it. There's a huge nerd discussion about, is this creating alternate realities where a dude is cut in half in the red band, but he's not cut in half in the regular. I think that kind of nerdy stuff is so funny. And I love it. And Marvel really emphasized that they want to kind of move the price back to $3.99. So they've heard a lot of people complain about the pricing, and so they're trying to kind of hold the line at $3.99. There was a hilarious Reddit comment the other day from somebody that was like, yeah, remember when DC said they were going to hold the line at $2.99? And I just piped in and said, yeah, that was 13 years ago. And the number of people that were like, it couldn't have been that long ago. Really? Was it really? Yeah, it was 2011 that they announced holding the line at $2.99. So yeah, I think $3.99 is probably a fair price. What kind of boggles my mind is always like when two books with the exact same page count and everything will be $2 different in price. And yeah, but I think they're recognizing that this is definitely, there's price fatigue among consumers. So they are recognizing it and doing something about it. Speaking of doing something about it, DC was so excited to announce that Wednesday comics were back, and a bunch of us joked that they should have actually ended their presentation with that and just dropped the mic and walked off, because I've never heard such a massive ovation. And then they announced that they were going to return their FOCs to Mondays as well, which got another round of applause. Sunday FOCs, in my opinion, are terrible. I hate them because I hate getting support requests on Sundays for stuff that's like, often we can't do anything about it. I can't contact Lunar or Marvel to say, hey, you guys, your data's wrong. Can we get some clarification? Because none of them are around till Monday. So at least on Mondays, we've got some support here. So DC also announced the Absolute Power event, which will start with the FC Free Comic Book Day special in May. It's the big event from Mark Waid. I think Dan Moore is on the first issue, but I'm not positive. So yeah, this should be cool. Looking forward to that. Day 2 had even more presentations. We had Evans Art, Vault Comics, IDW Publishing, ComicsPRO, Dynamite, Scholastic, First Comics, Mad Cave. Oh my god, First Comics was so funny. The dude that I forget his name. He's one of the OG founders though, but he was so funny. And the lady who now does, I forget her name. It just totally escapes me. She does like kind of the kids line. Kept on giving him the you can't really see my neck, but she was giving him the cut sign. So yeah, it was really funny, but he was just like unvarnished and kind of hilarious. Mad Cave, Paper Cuts, One Press. I think that should say Oni Press, but I believe that my spell check fixed it for me. Thanks, spell check. PRH Publishing, and Rebellion. And then ComicsPRO also celebrated their charter members. So stores, all these stores have been around in ComicsPRO for 20 plus years, which was pretty cool. Day 2 also had big news from Dynamite. They announced that they had 180,000 copies of Thundercats #1 went to press, and that #2 has orders of 82,000 copies, which is pretty impressive. Managed Comics did our own presentation, and then we announced the COMET Standard, and I'll go into that a little bit more in a bit. It's 108 fields created and vetted by 90 plus industry members, distributors, publishers, software vendors, and retailers, and more. It was a really amazing kind of cross industry thing that happened, and I'm really, really happy about what happened there. But I'm going to go into kind of depth on that in a little bit. Then on day 3, so day 3 was the Saturday. At that point, it felt like you were on the moon because we had been in low gravity orbit for 4 days. I kept hanging out with West Coasters, who it turns out they like go to bed 3 hours later than me, and they just kept keeping me awake until 4 o'clock in the morning. Foolish West Coasters. Next year, I'm going to only hang out with East Coasters, so keep that in mind, folks. The presentations on Saturday were from Saturday AM, Square Enix, Viz Media, Kodansha USA, and Yen Press. We also visited with more than 70 more retailers over the 3 hours that were on day 3 for roundtables. Roundtables are the best thing because they're 10 minutes long. We get to talk to the 4 people usually at a time, and we just talk about. Well, I've got a kind of a spiel about Managed Comics, but I also ask them about their stores. And if there's a Managed Comics store at the table, usually I don't have to say anything because the stores will sell the service on their own. So that's pretty great. They announced the new ComicsPRO board, which was elected. So Joe Murray is the new president. Jen Haynes is the VP and the outreach director. She was the former president. Itan Manhoff is now the promotions director. Sienna Fallon, who's a new member to the board, is the education director. Moira Banks is the membership director. Special projects is Katie Pride, and she's going to be really, really spearheading Comet in the next year. And programs and events director is Mark Bowker. Then we went on a comic shop tour. That's Dan from Southside Comics there. He's a Managed Comics customer. So we saw Pittsburgh Comics, Southside, and Phantom of the Attic. And there were 3 totally different comic shops and very cool. I think I'm going to have Dan on here at some point, and we'll talk about his shop. He does an amazing job doing online sales as well as offline sales. So his stuff has to be all synced up really, really well. He's got a good size shop in the front, and then he's got almost the same size in the back for shipping and everything. So yeah, it's a very cool operation, and he's doing a great job with it. And then Phantom of the Attic is a really cool kind of second floor shop that has a really weird Trump Loyal kind of thing where you look down, it looks like there's a mirror, but it's actually literally double the space in this one area. And it was a weird space where you walk in and you're like, oh, it's not very big. And then you turn around a corner and there's an entire other store, and you turn around another corner and there's an entire another store. It was so cool. It was such a great use of space, and it was such an interesting space. It was really neat. I like that place a lot. I also found a Starman action figure, which I haven't seen in years, and scooped it up. We are now also part of the ComicsPRO Advisory Council. So Managed Comics joined the Advisory Council along with 15 other publishers, distributors, point of sale, although I'm trying to convince them to say the word software vendors, and ComicsPRO board members, and we'll work with them to address concerns in the industry. Let's take a little break right here to hear from our sponsor, Murphy's Apple Juice. It's not the taste, it's the shape, but it's also the taste. And the taste is pretty dang good.
You put it in your mouth and you drink it. Drop an ice cube in there and clink it. It's Murphy's apple juice. And you
Murphy's apple juice. It's the shape, not the taste, but it's also the taste, which is pretty dang good.
All right, now that we've got that earworm firmly implanted in everyone's brains, you're welcome. Back to the show. I think I'm going to go Comet next, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Comet Standard, what it is, why it's important, and what my plans are for the Comet Standard. He said nefariously, mwahaha. So the first part about it was just kind of the process and collaboration around it. I'm actually going to pull up the slide deck if you can just bear with me for 13 seconds. We did everything interesting in the notes. So without the notes, it's kind of hard for me to, there we go. Yeah, now I can, makes more sense. So last year in February 2023 at the ComicsPRO meeting, Katie Pride announced that she and several other retailers and comics professionals had been meeting privately about data concerns for the past year, would be putting together a committee of stakeholders across the industry. So we had about 90 different stakeholders involved, and those included distributors, publishers, retailers, software developers like me, point of sale developers, all those folks. So there were like Diamond, Lunar, Penguin Random House, all had people at it. Universal Distribution had somebody at it. Marvel, DC, the book industry study group had a person there named Brian. There's like 17 Brians involved in this. My Comic Shop, Comic Shop Assistant, DC Comics, all those folks were involved. Graham Cracker Comics, so big and small retailers as well. And it was a huge initiative that took us the better part of a year to get through. And we, collaborated, talked, and discussed everything. And the end result of that was the white paper. The white paper is 19 pages long, but it's got a bunch of supplemental pages, like 108 page data breakdown. We have an Excel file that's attached to it as well that shows you all the fields and everything. So it ends up being 108 fields that we've identified, and I'll explain a little bit about what those fields are in a couple seconds. This kind of all started because in the old days, Diamond was kind of the default standard for everything. So Diamond in like 97, when the world changed and they became kind of the sole distributor, they developed the master data file, which was a little bit pre kind of customers needing it. In 2007, they created Comic Suite and Previews World. And around that time, they adopted the 17-digit UPC codes that we're familiar with today. So that's kind of how data was from 97 until 2020. And then in 2020, we had our distributor breakup. UCS and Lunar started. And all three companies were doing things entirely different. UCS and Lunar had different formats compared to Diamond, different formats among themselves. They were using different things for series code. So Lunar ended up starting to use DC's family codes as series codes. And it turns out Diamond was providing and creating a lot of the data that nobody really knew. So things like issue sequence number, which determines the sequence that a cover comes in. Things like, they were creating variant names for different variants. Things like series codes. Series codes weren't something that a publisher would create. They were something that Diamond would create for them. So kind of making all that stuff standardized again, I guess, and like creating standards for all of that is what we've worked on for the last year, and a lot more. So yeah, now that there isn't kind of a de facto standard, the distributors are in a weird position where they can't really be cops because the publishers are kind of their customers. So if they say, no, we won't carry this unless you abide by these rules, unless all the distributors are saying the same things, and there's probably tricky things with like, competition rules and stuff like that. But unless they're all saying the same stuff, the publishers can kind of get away with whatever they want. So having the publishers commit to this as well as the distributors and the retailers is a huge thing. So because better data means that we can sell more stuff. So that takes us kind of to today, where we've got 3 different files that come in 3 vastly different formats, and that we have to ingest into one kind of thing and reformat on our own. And one of the things I don't particularly like about doing that is that I, Brian Garside, am making editorial decisions and distinctions on files and information that I don't feel I should be. I will happily, because it has to get done, but I don't think I should be creating storylines, for example. I think that storylines should be something that the distributors should create for us, because I could add stuff to a storyline that might not be there. And likewise, I could drop stuff out of a storyline that shouldn't be there. So we want to kind of get more and more of this information from, I should say, the actual distributors. So that's where some of that comes from. In 2022, when Penguin Random House came on board, we realized that there was a better, not necessarily better, but there was a more formal way of doing this. Penguin Random House came in with a lot of really great predefined fields that we hadn't seen before. And so we started kind of revisiting the whole thing with multiple data sources, having different data shared about the same individual item. We also started noticing that the data was drifting between different distributors. So Penguin Random House might have really, really good data on one thing, but Diamond had better data on another thing. And we get into this weird thing where we have to overwrite data based on who has kind of the most current data, and it's not always right. So we need a way to get the same data from everyone all the time. That sounds really exciting, doesn't it? But it is. And here's why. I talked a little bit about this. There's 3 different types of costs for bad data. There's increased labor costs, there's loss of sales, and there's improper retail ordering. So let's talk first of all about retail or increased labor costs. We track our time within Managed Comics, so I know how much time I'm spending on any given task, and I know how much my people are spending. So I ran a quick report that said over a 12-month period from 2022 to 2023, how much time were we spending cleaning up data? And the result I got was an hourly number. I multiplied that hourly number by how much I'm paying people, and it cost us $76,000. So in the room, I had everyone who deals with data hold up their hand, right? And there was, I would say, half of the audience held up their hands. So I'd say there was 80 people. Now, if it's costing me that much money, and remember, I have a fairly sophisticated system that does a bunch of pre-checks on things, but let's just say that it costs $76,000 for me. We multiply that by, let's say, 50 stores. That is $3.8 million that's costing the industry in labor costs, which honestly, that should be fixed right at the root. Like that should not even be happening. We might spend, 5 hours finicking around with things to make it fit a way that we want it to fit. Like, let's say that we want, I don't know, TPB to always read trade paperback, something silly like that. But that shouldn't be costing us $76,000 a year. Loss of sales is another thing. Bad data causes a loss of sales either through customers not getting enough information, through the retailers not having the information to make an informed decision, and various other things that result in the sale itself being lost. Improper retail ordering. So mismatched codes can cause retailers to under or over order on individual items. For example, the same number of an oversized $50 hardcover as they would for the regular issue, which we've actually seen and helped retailers, resolve. There's all kinds of stuff like that. So there's definitely costs to these bad data. So this is where the COMET standard comes in. And the COMET standard is a way to help ensure information given to software vendors and shops is clean, consistent, true, and portable. It's a living document, the COMET standard itself, so it can flex with the future changes in the industry. And it's all based on something called atomic data. So atomic data is the smallest piece of information we can get. If we break down a title, it would be like Batman number 147 dash what's Joker year one bracket B cover Capullo version variant, right? Every one of those things is a discrete thing. So Batman is one thing. Number 147, B cover, Capullo variant, like all those things should be discrete so that we can reassemble it however we want to. So that leads to the key types of data and their owners. We've identified 3 different pieces of data. There's essential and core data, which are the responsibility of the publisher. Essential is the bare data that we need, that we need in order to get a product created. So it's literally title, UPC code, and price. Without any one of those things, we can't really create a product in the system. The UPC or ISBN is the primary identifier that we use all along. I'm going to interject for 1 second. Coliseum says, I'm working on something else. You mentioned a time standard. So you're soaking in it right now. We've already started implementing it. A lot of different places are really pushing it. Year 1 was identifying it. Year 2 is going to be implementing it. Our goal is that by the end of 2025, everybody will have adopted it. But my aggressive goal is to start using it as soon as possible. And I'm going to go over a couple ways that we're going to use it at the end of this part. So essential data, core data is everything that a publisher would use to describe a product. So it's everything that's everything like series title, series code, gosh, I'm trying to think, variant name, storyline sequence, like where does this fit in a storyline, all that kind of stuff as well. And extended data is the data managed by the distributor, and it's essentially how you order a thing and what the qualifiers and discount codes and everything are. So we made a big play about UPCs and ISBN. They're unique. Don't reuse them. We see this all the time, especially like smaller publishers like KeenSpot will reuse something that they've canceled, and because that's already in our system, then it gets stomped over and you can't. It's a long story. It's terrible though. It's terrible practice. Please don't do it. We talked about categorization and using BISACs. So that's the book industry study group stuff that is already being used by the comics industry for the book trade. It just gives us a lot more, like with comics right now, there are 12 overall categories. And I want to say 22 genres. I don't even think it's that many. I think it's like 14 genres. So that gives us like a total of 24 things you can categorize by. With BISACs, comics alone have, I think, 100 and something. So it really lets you narrow things down, and you can have up to 3 BISACs per title, which means you can have, war comic, and then you can drill down and say that it's a 1970s war comic, and then you can drill down a little bit more and say that it's a 1970s fantasy war comic if you want to describe Ghost Tank, let's say, right? So yeah, it gives us more granularity, I guess. And more granularity really, really matters on the internet, because when you have things like faceted search, which sometime I'll show you kind of how to enable that kind of stuff, it lets you really narrow things down. So yeah, this is super big. BISAC and the Book Industry Study Group have committed to really putting some time into to comics. So that's awesome. And then we said, by the way, UPCs are unique, because you really, really need this to get through to people. Please don't reuse UPCs. So I built a little website, which you can find today at COMETstandard.com. Over the next coming weeks and months, this website's going to get way more in depth. We're going to put all 108 metadata items on the website in a knowledge base so that you can search for them. And if you want to know, like, what is the proper formatting of a creator code, we'll have that information there. So all that stuff will be there. Right now, it's all there, a little bit unstructured. So a couple of things are in PDFs that I don't want to be in PDFs in the long term, but I built it in a day. So hey, and it's an awesome site. It's fast. It's searchable. It is all the things that I do with all the websites that I build. Your websites that are on Shopify get found online because the same SEO principles that we use to create all the managed comics items are in place on your website. And that's why when you have Ultimate Spider-Man #2 on your website, it is one of the first sites that comes up for Ultimate Spider-Man 2 in your area. So that's the same with how we've built this site. It's all searchable, and all that good stuff is happening as well. We also created a little something called the COMET code, which is a code that we are asking distributors, publishers, retailers, and software developers to sign that just says that you support this. And that's going to let us get logos on the website. We want to have logos on the website, but we want to have permission to use those logos. So you're going to see more and more of those logos over time. In terms of the next steps, distributors are working first to convert their current files to the new format structure by the end of 2024. We will have full adoption in the next month or so within Managed Comics. And what we're going to do is basically restructure our database so that it uses COMET, and we will just format any files that come into the COMET standard. Anything that's missing, we'll just leave null for now, but like the existing file structures all are in COMET. We've just added a bunch of stuff and kind of tweaked some stuff as well. Publishers are going to redouble their attention to providing correct and complete data as described in the standard. Point of sale system software providers will work to code ingestion pipelines for the new format structure by the end of 2024. We will be ready way before that. And I'm going to talk about a big project that we're going to do, which will help with this. Publishers and distributors will then work together to supply additional COMET standard data fields that are not currently be supplied. So over the next year, we're going to identify stuff that we need to add, and we're going to build that stuff as well. And if you're interested in this, if you're a nerd and you want to get involved, you can. You just go to COMETstandard.com/contact, fill out the form, and get involved. And yeah, that's kind of it. And we talked a little bit about our Data B.R.O.S podcast, where we're going to talk with Katie and Jess who are the other two members of the COMET Standard. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. I'm going to take a moment here to thank everyone for joining us. Everything is going to be back to normal next week. You'll have all three of us live and not as robots, allegedly. And if all goes according to plan, we're going to talk to some folks who were integral to the COMET Standard. In the meantime, keep watching the skies. There might be a comet coming your way.
The Data B.R.O.S is a joint project from the teams behind Comic Shop Assistant and Managed Comics. Data B.R.O.S are Django Boren, Jeff Figley, and Brian Garside. Brian Garside produces and edits the episode. And you'll find more about the Data B.R.O.S online at databrosinc.com. Subscribe, like, and review the Data Bros on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts.